I am back after a month off, part of which was unintentional. What's been happening behind the scenes at Sunshine Lane? I had my first trade show of the year, so not only did I have to get ready for top drawer, I also set myself the challenge of designing 60 new greetings cards. Now, I used Notion to help me do this. I've created a mood board in Canva. I was really happy with how it came together, and I think it really said Sunshine Lane in a way that it just didn't at last year's trade show. I actually can't believe the difference in a year. It's hard sometimes not to feel deflated, but don't compare your chapter 1 with somebody else's chapter 5 or whatever numbers it is. I want to go over my 2024 vision board with you and see where we actually got to with it. Putting something on your vision board is quite vulnerable, because what if it doesn't come to be? Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new studio vlog. I am back on YouTube after a month off, part of which was unintentional, but I want to update you on what's been happening behind the scenes at Sunshine Lane. I promised you that I would reflect on my 2024 vision board, and that hasn't been done yet, so we're going to see that in this video. If you haven't seen my videos before, my name's Emma and I run Sunshine Lane, which is a wonderful world of colour and fun. I design stationery and gifts that spread positivity and encourage self-care, and I love it. So I have lots of ideas and plans for the year ahead. So like I said, it's been a month since I released kind of part 1 of reflecting on 2024. And then Christmas happened. And if you follow this channel, you will know that I adopted a little girl last year. And this was our first family Christmas. So I wanted to be present. I wanted to be showing up and not worrying too much about what I needed to get ready for January. Although I will come on to why that was a bit of a struggle. But it was lovely. And I feel like we really turned a corner over Christmas where we just felt like a family, and things have settled more. And she's also become quite the little chatterbox, which is lovely. And so she's copying loads of words. You have to be careful what you say now. And yeah, she's just a joy to be around. So we had so many smiles, so much fun, made lots of memories, spent lots of time with family. It was really lovely. But in the back of my mind during this time was that I had my first trade show of the year this weekend just gone. So it's on Sunday the 19th as I'm filming this of January. And the trade show was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday this week. So we went down to London on the Saturday the 11th to set up. We did the trade show Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then we travelled back Tuesday night, and it went really well. So this was top drawer, and it's my second time doing top drawer. I did it this time last year, and I did a couple of videos on that, which I will link for you. And last year I was in the launch pad, which is a section for people who've never done trade shows before, on quite a little stand, and it went really well. And I knew I wanted to do more trade shows after that. And so this time, coming back to top drawer, I kind of had to choose what section of the show I wanted to have a stand in. And I'm never quite sure, because there's greetings and stationery, but in that section there are very few people that just do stationery without greetings cards. And there's also the gift section. So in my other trade shows last year, I went in gift, but I made the decision to bring greetings cards to the shop for the first time. Well, I had a few on my Etsy shop like years ago, but I've never properly done greetings cards. And so I decided that I was gonna create a whole load of greetings cards to go alongside my gifts, and I was gonna have a stand in the greetings and stationery section, and that would kind of be my big splash of launching greetings cards. So not only did I have to get ready for top drawer, I also set myself the challenge of designing 60 new greetings cards. Now, I used Notion to help me do this, and this is a template that I'm thinking about putting together for people to be able to use, but adding more to it in terms of launching and stuff. So I'm gonna take you over to Notion now and show you what I used, but if you think that'll be useful, let me know in the comments below and I will put it together. So this is my Notion page where I planned out my greetings card launch, and this is a template that I'm working on developing that I think might be useful to people. So some of it I used for this launch, some of it I didn't, but I'm going to use for my future launches. And then there are other things that I would like to add. So let me take you through it. So at the top here, I didn't do this for this collection, but this is something I normally do and that I want to do for my other collections that I've got this year, is a kind of who, what, why, when. And just in those very initial stages of thinking about a collection, who is it for? So it might be that you have like an ideal customer in mind, and that might be information that you always slot the same thing in there. Or it might be different depending on the specific collection. But having that reminder there when you're coming up with designs and ideas for content and all of that stuff, I think is a really good idea so that you don't lose track of that. Then obviously the what of it, like what is the theme going to be? What types of products do you think? Like what is the messaging behind the collection? I might come up with a kind of list of prompts for each of them to make it easier so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming. But those are the types of things I would normally write about. Then why? Like, why have I chosen those things? Why this collection? What is the inspiration for it? Is there any personal meaning? Why do I think the messaging's important? Those kind of things. And then the when. So do I have any ideas for when I'm going to launch it? And that might be like, when do I need to launch it for wholesale and when for public retail? Are there seasons that it particularly fits into? If I've got an idea for a collection in mind, but maybe it's like way in the future and I know it won't even fit this year, I can at least make a page for it and start to make those notes. And I might write that this makes sense to do in the autumn. And like, I haven't got time for this autumn, so it'll have to be next autumn, for example. Then I've created a mood board in Canva, and if I was to release this as a template, I would also kind of release a template for Canva for you to do your own. But I've essentially taken some of my previous products or current products, some of my illustrations, and I've combined those with others that I have found that I've been inspired by for the kind of vibe that I want the collection to have. And then I've combined that with kind of little words and phrases that give a bit more of an idea. So I've got cute characters, uplifting messages, bold typography, fun doodles, punny vibes, just because is like the theme. So I'm not going to be doing like birthday cards. I'm going to be doing the more kind of like thinking of you, wanted to send you a message to say kind of cards, and then a hug in an envelope. So that's the kind of vibes I want the collection to have. And then I've just put my 4 brand colours as a little colour palette. I will probably use a wider colour palette. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it all with just 4 colours, but those 4 colours usually tie into a lot of my collections. And so that's the plan, is to make sure that those are kind of in there somewhere. And then on the right hand side, I have a list of ideas for products to create. So obviously here it's greetings cards. But if it was more of like a character collection, what products do I see there being in this collection? And I can keep making a note when I have new ideas. And then I have a little creative vibes where I've just got a playlist with like really cozy vibes that I put on when I'm planning or when I'm illustrating. And so I thought it was quite cute to have it like within the template so that I can just pop it on and do some planning from here. But obviously you could pick whatever you wanted, depending on the vibe of the collection or like something to just get you in the creative mood. So then I started to make a list of illustrations I already had that I thought would make a good greetings card design, or that I would update or tweak in some way. But like, I had the basis of the design and the idea, because I've done so many illustrations over the years, whether it's for past products, current products, some social media content. I used to do a lot of content for Patreon when I had my Patreon community open, and no one's seeing any of those. So there's a lot of things saved in folders that people aren't seeing. So that was kind of my first port of call, was to go through all my files, my Instagram, all that kind of stuff, and be like, look, what do I have that would fit the bill, that would make a good greetings card? And then from there, I started to put them into categories, and I ended up coming up with 5 categories, which were a retro collection. I have a retro collection of products called the Find Your Groove collection, and so it would feature a lot of those illustrations with some others. A wildflower collection, again featuring some of the illustrations I released for that collection, but with a lot more added, and with some others that I would kind of rework to fit this theme. I wanted a collection that was just bold typography, just bold quotes that were really eye-catching. And then 2 punny collections, one with animal puns and one with food puns. So I decided I was going to do 12 cards in each collection. And so I would have 60 cards in total. And even though that seems bonkers, I knew that maybe half of the designs, maybe more than half, already existed in some form. And so they weren't all completely new ideas from scratch. Some of them were, some of them weren't. So I decided to go for it because I thought, if I'm going to turn up to a trade show as a greetings card designer, then I can't just turn up with like 10 cards. It needs to be substantial, and I'm just going to go for it. So I decided that I was going to go for 5, but it might end up being 4. And I would see where I got to. I set out my little sections. And again, if I was to release this as a template, I would release the kind of cover header image templates in Canva so that you could do your own. And I slotted my lists under each one. So all the retro ones in retro. And I basically gave myself like 12 tick lists of 12. And once I'd slotted in the designs that I thought would go in each that I already had, I could see how many new ones I would have to do in each section. And then I filled them up with ideas. And then I actually ended up with a little list down here of ideas that I didn't end up using, which I've just saved for future while I was writing this through. And then as I was going ahead and doing the designs, I just ticked off each one. I did almost like a first draft of every design first, and then I went back in and looked at each collection and tweaked the colours, tweaked the designs, and tried to make it all look cohesive as a collection. And I managed to get all 60 done by January, which I'm not quite sure how. Not quite sure how, especially with Christmas, but I didn't feel like I was missing out particularly. It was mostly naps and after bed. And I was actually really enjoying having some creative time to design and illustrate, because it feels like I haven't done that for so long. I'm sure it's only been a few months, but that is quite long, it feels like. I haven't really done any since I went off to become a mum. So it was really nice. Like, it felt really relaxing for me and recharging to do it. And so I'm really glad that I've done it now. And I was able to take the collection with me to Top Drawer. So something that I want to add on here for future is essentially what my usual product launch, like project template, will contain. So a kind of set list of tasks that I usually have for a product launch that I would then kind of put deadlines in for, or delete any that are irrelevant and then add new ones. Ideas for launching, ideas for content, like the more I can kind of work down this page and like work through the process, the better, basically. So as I'm going through, this is very much like initial planning, although really good to look back at when you're trying to write content for social media or whatever it is, because you need to think about who it's for, etc. You got your mood board to keep looking back at, like, what is this collection going to be? Really deciding on what's going to be in the collection, making it, and then like getting on to your launch tasks and stuff. So I just think it really helps to have everything in one place. And every time I was working on it, I would have Notion open as well, and I would be ticking off my designs. I would be looking what else I fancied designing off the list today, and I would be referring back to my mood board, like having that open in the corner or whatever it might be. So I really, really liked doing it this way, and much more of like a creative workflow of thinking about what I wanted to achieve out of the launch ahead of time before kind of diving into, oh God, I need some products, I need them now, let's just design something. It was just a much more thought out way of doing things that I really enjoyed. So let me show you how they turned out. These are my greetings cards at Top Drawer. I absolutely loved how they turned out. I had them up in their collection, so I had kind of 2 rows of 6 for every collection. I could definitely see there were ones that people were drawn to as like the favourites, and that was nice and also really insightful to get that feedback and know, like, are the ones that people are just never commented on, and are the ones that seem to be making people chuckle a lot, like with the punny cards, or ones that retailers are pointing to more and like showing a colleague or whatever it might be. So that was really good to get that kind of in-person feedback. And obviously I'll see the same when I launch them online, hopefully this week, as you're watching this, which I'll talk a bit more about later. So back to talking about Top Drawer. So like I said before, if this template is something you think would be really useful for you, I am happy to kind of develop it further and put more things in there that would be useful. If there's anything you struggle with product collections and launching new products or planning new collections, let me know in the comments, and let me know if you think it's something that would be useful before I spend a bunch of time on it. But it's something that I would like to do this year. I've been talking about doing for a while, is developing those templates that I use in Notion for other people to be able to use as well, because I think these things take a lot of time to set up, and I've kind of been tweaking them over the years, and they're maybe getting to a position where someone else could pick it up and use it and really benefit from it. So yeah, let me know in the comments. But with my 60 greetings cards done, I ordered them. It was a little bit down to the wire in terms of them arriving in time. So I didn't vlog Top Drawer. I've been feeling quite overwhelmed so far at the start of this year, and I kind of just needed to get through it. But I will talk you through the show, and I will show you some clips that I did take of the stand and stuff. So this time I had a 3x2 meter stand, which compared to my 2x1 last year was a big old space. Obviously some other stands were still huge in comparison, but to me it just felt like having a bit more land. I felt kind of a bit more established, and to be honest, compared to last January, the range of products that I've got, I actually can't believe the difference in a year. So last year I took pins, notepads and journals, pocket hearts, stickers, washi tapes. I don't even know if I took the washi tapes, my spinner ring, and I think that's all I sold, and like a few giftable items. This year, like, I've added on in the last year tote bags. I've got my little bookish pouch. Obviously, I've got more pins, journals, notepads, etc. than before. I've also added mugs and tumblers. I didn't take the mouse pads. I'm just looking on my shelves now. I did take the washi tape this time. I've got my bullet journal. So yeah, like, there's a lot more that I needed to be able to fit in the stand. So it was fun putting it together, and this was the first time that I decided I was going to go for some sort of backdrop as opposed to white walls. At last January's show, I did get some feedback that whilst my stand looked lovely, it didn't really match my brand and like what I was trying to sell. Like, it was a bit disjointed because I'd left everything white for 2 reasons. Firstly, to let the products pop and not to detract from them. But secondly, because I didn't know if trade shows were going to be for me. I didn't know if I was going to get a return on the money I was spending. And therefore, I was trying to keep the costs down as much as possible, because you've either got to go early to paint it and pay for paint and extra accommodation, or you've got to pay a company to do it. And then, regardless, you have to pay them to paint it back white at the end. So it's like a lot of extra money and time. So I didn't really want to go the painting route again for those reasons. And when I'm doing trade shows, I'm always trying to find solutions where I can reuse what I've created across multiple shows. So I decided to design a backdrop on vinyl panels. It's almost like a really thick wallpaper, but it's like rollable vinyl panels, and you put them up with double-sided Velcro, which was a bit of a battle, I'm not gonna lie. I was ready to throw them out the window, but up they went, and I've basically designed it so like I'll always start one end and then it wraps round, and when I go to my next trade show, I actually need 1/2 metre more. So I've got another 1/2 metre panel to put on the end that still matches the pattern, if that makes sense. So I can always kind of reconfigure them because they're in 1 metre panels, except for this extra 1/2 metre. So when I put the videos up, it'll make sense. But I was obviously trying to match the patterns, trying to make it look flat on the wall. I think I learned lessons about that it would be like easier to do it next time with experience. And then my idea was that all other displays would be attached over the top of the vinyl with something sticky enough to hold it, but not sticky enough where it's going to wreck the vinyl when I pull it off. So that was a bit of a challenge. We had a combination of command strips, which who doesn't love a command strip, and again, double-sided Velcro, and it actually worked fine. Nothing I was hanging was particularly heavy, and I did think of that when I was putting it together. So I used my collapsible shelving units that I've been using for the last few trade shows to create a kind of bank of tables at the back that I would put collections of products on. So I had like my wildflower stuff on one, I had my bookish stuff on one, and then I had mugs and washi at the end. And then I put another couple at the front with like stickers, pins, pocket hearts. And then on the other side, I had notepads and journals because it was kind of big enough to do that without it feeling cramped and too shallow. And then my cards all went up on the wall. So I had cut some strips of wood and hammered nails in at like regular intervals. I nearly did it wrong, but I caught my measurement mistake at the last minute. And I painted them pink and I hammered the nails in, and then with my cards and envelopes, I just put them on a little bulldog clip and just hung them on the nails. And it made a really lovely grid of cards on the wall. It was actually quite quick and easy to do. Didn't take up much room in the car. I just bubble wrapped them so the nails weren't like stabbing into things. And we were away. So that was quite a cheap solution for the cards. I didn't really want to go the route of sticking each individual card on the wall because A, that sounds like a nightmare, and B, if someone wants to get them down and look at the back and feel the texture and whatever, then they can't. So that's what I did. And overall, once I stepped back and stopped looking at all this bit of Velcro and this little bit of this, I was really, really happy with how it came together. And I think it really said Sunshine Lane in a way that it just didn't at last year's trade show. And yeah, I was so, so happy. I made this wooden sign with my xTool laser cutter, which said Sunshine Lane. It's like my logo. And I actually used paint pens to colour the wood. And it was really, really easy. And then just stuck it together. Again, all a little bit last minute, but it worked fine. And yeah, I just felt like everything was kind of leveled up. And I got loads of lovely comments about my stand, even from businesses where like I wasn't their niche, I wasn't what they were looking for, but they just on a personal level wanted to stop and see what it was. Somebody said like from upstairs, it really stood out as you look down because there's like a balcony that goes all the way around, that it really stood out as like a big pop of colour. And we also had room for a little like mini table and stools so we could sit on our laptops and like follow up on things, do some invoices and like have a bit of a rest, which was really lovely. Because when we had a smaller stand, you feel like you're standing in front of the products all the time. And I'd say to my mum, go over there, don't stand next to me, because if the two of us stood together, we were blocking the products completely. So yeah, it was a great experience. It was definitely a different experience. I will say the greetings section is huge, and so I did feel a bit like a small fish in a big pond. And I could hear other surrounding stands saying, oh, I've just spoken to Oliver Bonus, I've just spoken to Next, I've just spoken to like all these big Scribbler, I can't remember, all these big kind of card retailers. And it's hard sometimes not to feel deflated, but I keep seeing a quote somewhere that's like, don't compare your chapter 1 with somebody else's chapter 5 or whatever numbers it is. And it was a bit like that because I was surrounded by people that had been doing trade shows for years and they'd been doing greetings cards for years. And I know that trade shows is a long game. You need to keep showing up and people need to keep seeing that you mean business and you're not going anywhere. Which is frustrating because obviously you need the orders to be able to keep paying for the trade shows because they are crazy expensive. But I feel like I'm going into my second round and it went well. It's always a little bit difficult to know because a lot of the orders like will come in the follow-up after the show, and like I was still getting orders in September that came from last January, and when I was nudging people, they were saying, oh, we just haven't got round to ordering yet. So it is like quite a long game and you have to keep on. It's not just like you do the trade show and that's it. It's like the trade show is kind of step one of following up with all the people you meet. But I had some repeat customers come back. I had some people that were excited to visit me that like I already stock. And I will say, like, even though I feel I got less leads than last year, the leads that I got, it felt like it was people who got my brand and what I was about, and they were excited and they were saying things like, oh, you're definitely going to hear from us. Whereas last year, people were a bit, yeah, maybe, yeah, take my details, but I'm not sure. So I feel like sometimes it's quality, not quantity. And that's what I'm telling myself anyway. And overall, I feel it was a success. I guess I'm a little bit hesitant because sometimes it's like, what does success look like from a trade show? And we are going to have to see what orders come in. But the greetings cards went well. When I was there, I found out I'd been shortlisted for an award and no one had told me. So, and I then looked who else was shortlisted and I knew some people in the other categories. So I was like, went and said, oh, well done. And they hadn't been told either. So I did give that feedback. But I was shortlisted for Best New Greetings Collection for my wildflower cards. Didn't win, but it was an honour to be nominated. And genuinely, I was really pleased that I've been nominated because it is such a huge section of the show. And obviously there are so many big companies releasing new things all the time in that category. It was stiff competition. So I think there were about 4 or 5 of us on the shortlist. It was actually the stand opposite me, Lisa from Stoats and Weasels, came across and had said like, oh, I'm just coming to check out the competition because she knew she was also shortlisted. And it was my mum on the stand at the time. And she said like, what do you mean? And yeah, we found out. And they'd actually printed off some like signs before they came with like the top drawer kind of imagery saying shortlisted in this section, and they had a spare one and they let me have it for my stand, and so I put it up next to my wildflower collection, and a few buyers did kind of spot it and ask about it. So that was really lovely, and I think just a reflection of how businesses can support each other. It's really nice. I spoke to some other business owners that like I'd not met before, and I was just asking their experience about trade shows and like picking up some tips and things. And in the main, like people are happy to help you out and yeah, to see what you're doing and just like really friendly. So that's really nice to be in that environment. And I just love trade shows in general because it always feels like being surrounded by such a burst of creativity is lovely. I met some lovely people who like follow me on here or on Instagram who were going to pop down to the show and say hi, which was so lovely. So I saw the lovely Katie from Mama Bear Creates. I saw Katie from Peb and Reg, 2 Katies. I saw Joe and Kate from Ups a Daisy, and who else did I see? Oh, I saw Kelly, who I met at Southwest Planner Club, and it turns out she is the sister of someone who runs another greetings card business who was also in my section, and she was helping out on the stand. So that was really lovely to like meet people in real life. I'm really sorry if I've missed anyone. I think that was everyone who came to visit. It was really lovely to like catch up with people or to meet people in real life that I'd only spoken to online before. And people were kind of coming just to get a feel for the show and see if it was something they wanted to do in the future or be inspired. And it was nice to just like have a chat with people that I knew and get a little bit of support on my stand. So I really, really appreciated that. It was lovely. And then the longest day was Tuesday because we had to check out of the hotel, take our suitcases of car and stuff, and then like walk to the venue, do a full day, and then when it closed, rip everything down, pack it away, go and get the car, bring that back, load the car up, and then drive all the way back, which we didn't get back till about 11. And having done all that, and like all the kind of physical exertion from the trade show I found really difficult. And so my plan was just to collapse in a heap for a couple of days and just like be around family. But my husband was already prepped that like I'm not going to be able to just jump back into parenting and like doing all the stuff. But the middle of the night, that night, my husband developed some kind of bug. He was really, really poorly for 2 days. So I had to then do everything for our little girl. And I was absolutely, absolutely exhausted. And by that point, I'd just pushed myself way past the point. I do find it physically and mentally very, very draining doing the trade shows, especially having fibromyalgia and like experiencing chronic pain and things. And I push myself past a point that is comfortable to be able to do it and normally like schedule in that recovery time after, which is not ideal, but it's a method. But obviously now that I'm a mum, I can't just like come back and collapse for 2 days. Especially if like when my husband goes back to work and stuff. So that's something that perhaps needs to be thought out a bit better in the future. And our normal kind of support system, I didn't want to ask my mum because she'd been to the trade show with me and she would also be exhausted and in pain. She also has fibromyalgia. My husband's mum had just had an operation. Like my father-in-law was at work. Like the normal people we'd call on, like I didn't want to really call on for whatever reason. So I was just like, oh, this is just typical. So I just pushed through. But I was actually really happy because I had missed my little girl like mad. I had proper mum guilt before I left. And I just didn't, like, I wanted to go, but I felt really sad about leaving her. And it's like the first time I've left her, really. So it was 4 days and I did video call her while I was away and she kept kissing the phone, bless her, which was very, very sweet. But when I woke her up the next morning, because obviously she was asleep when I got home, she was like, Mum, Mum, Mum. She was very excited. And even though I was exhausted, I actually really enjoyed spending that one-on-one time with her while my poor husband was sick upstairs. So yeah, it worked out fine in the end. And then I basically didn't end up going back to work for the rest of the week. So this is the first day back, really, doing this video. So when the week starts tomorrow, I'll be following up with people we met and we'll see where that gets to. So with Top Drawer done, I actually have my next trade show in less than 2 weeks, which feels ridiculous. So I'm doing Spring Fair at the NEC in Birmingham. It's much less travel for us, which is nice. It's like an hour away. We are staying nearby just to cut down on that travel back and forth each day. And because like the motorway we'd used to get there is notorious for delays. And so we'd end up having to actually set off a lot earlier just in case. So maybe like 3 hours a day in the car when trade show days are really long anyway. And it just means that I'm not going to get sucked back in at home and I can just focus on trade show stuff, do any bits that I need to do in the evening and then back to it early the next morning. So again, me and my mum will be off. This one is an extra day, so it will be set up Saturday and then Sunday to Wednesday. And they're longer days as well. I don't think the show shuts till about 6 o'clock each day, which then gives you a much smaller window of time to like get yourself some food, do any bits you need to do from the day and like physically recover and stuff and get ready to do it all again. But I'm looking forward to it. This one is a massive show, so I am a little bit nervous about that. I've got pretty much the same square footage, but exactly the same square footage. Actually, that's an odd phrase, but it's instead of 3x2, I've got 4 meters by 1.5, so it's not quite as deep. So I need to figure out how I'm going to adjust my stand and things. But yeah, we're not really going to properly unpack. We've just kept all the products and stuff in the boxes. We're just going to have a bit of a rejig because there's just no point. We're back off in less than 2 weeks. And so a lot of the prep I did was kind of for both shows. But it does feel a very quick turnaround and a little bit stressful to think about going away again in less than 2 weeks. But then there'll be no more trade shows till like September if I do the ones that are later in the year. So whereas this time of year is normally quite quiet for small businesses, if you slot trade shows in, then you've kind of filled that period up. But I also need to be working on my spring collection. So there's a lot going on in my head, which is why I really need to sort out my 2025 plans and get organised on what are kind of like my main priorities when throughout the year. But before I do that and dive into my 2025 planning, I want to go over my 2024 vision board with you and see where we actually got to with it, see if those things came to fruition, and see whether it needs updating for this year or whether the same still applies, because I'm a bit unsure about that. I don't know whether to just leave it the same. But I'm gonna head over to my computer and we'll have a look at the video I created last year about creating my vision board and react to it and see how I did. And a big reason why I chose my word of the year as intent was sometimes I feel like I set my vision for the year, but the fact that I'm not acting with intent means I never quite get as far towards it as I want to, because other things take over. I start just doing things on autopilot because I feel I have to do them. And I don't kind of go back and reevaluate what I'm doing and whether they are the most important things that should be being prioritized. And this is going to be a big year for me. It's hopefully the year where I'll become a parent. Me and my husband are going through the process of adopting, which I've mentioned before in some of my videos. And the balance is going to have to shift. The last few years, I've put a lot into work life and I love it. And there's a part of me that feels like, oh no, I don't want to cut back on that. But I already know that things aren't as balanced as I feel they should be and as I want them to be. So I want to make sure that I am acting with intent and that when I am in each place, whether it's home life, work life, my attention is fully focused in that area and I'm being really mindful and getting the most out of the present moment. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. So that's really interesting. I think I say this somewhere in this video that this was the first year that I felt confident to put images representing children on my vision board because I wanted it to be of my life as a whole, because I think running your own business, things do bleed over and it's a lot more kind of flexible. And in previous years, I'd not wanted to do that. We'd kind of had a long journey to get to this point. But this was the year that I became a mum in October. And that feels amazing. So as you can probably see me keep looking up, as I'm sat at my desk now, my vision board sits directly above my computer so that I can see it all the time. And there's some lovely images of like family, parents with a child, like a little baby's hand in an adult's hand. And this is why I think maybe I don't need to change my vision board all that much for this year, because what I was saying about getting that balance and having to be very intentional about this area, like work and family life, I'm definitely feeling that struggle. So part of the reason I said I would come back to that I haven't been that present on YouTube over the last month is that I just found I was spread too thin, and we've tried so long to have a child and I don't want to miss out on that time, especially in this initial period where we're bonding, we're getting to know each other. We've not had that initial kind of baby phase. We've skipped ahead, and that's strange for all of us to like suddenly have a toddler. Strange for her, it's strange for us. It feels more normal now, but I think because I did take that massive step back from Sunshine Lane last year and I had my mum in, big thank you. Like, she's been working 2 days a week since last July to keep things ticking over so that I could take that step back. But I'm now wondering what on earth I did with all my time before I was a mum that I had to spend on my business. And I feel like I squandered it because it feels like I was working all the time. But my prediction was true in terms of having to be really intentional and prioritize, because I have such small pockets of time. And I prefer to like get my head down and work over a longer period of time and get in the zone, but that's not always possible. Like, it's more been like I'll come in while she's napping, or after she's gone to bed, or it's like little windows of time. I have just started to kind of come back a couple of days a week, but I'm still in and out because I work at home. I'm still seeing her, and still, that distraction's there. So I am finding that it's a struggle. It's a big adjustment, and I haven't got it yet. Do you ever get it, mums? Probably not. I feel like setting my word as intent for last year was almost like a precursor to this, that I knew that, fingers crossed, this was coming and that things were going to change in a big way. And now I'm really still only in the early stages. She's only been with us 3 months. My vision board may stay the same because I am still kind of in that period that I was planning for, but we will see. But it's really lovely to see me kind of talking about those hopes and dreams and for them to be a reality. I feel quite emotional about that. Okay, let's skip ahead. I think this is where I talk about it. It's the first time that I've ever really included family or parenting images on my vision board, which felt quite emotional to do. I don't think I've ever let myself put that on a vision board because what if it doesn't happen? I think this year is the closest we've been to that being a reality, and all being well, we will hopefully become parents this year. And ultimately, I want to look at my vision board and think, this is what you're doing all these things for. So, for example, a big reason I like working for myself and I'm trying to set my business up in certain ways so that I can juggle it with family life when we become parents. And so being able to look up and see that kind of imagery, I want it to be motivating and to remind me what I'm doing it all for. So I let myself give into the dream a little bit. Your vision board is where you want to be and what you kind of want to come to fruition in 2024. That's like really emotional for me to watch, actually. I did think I remembered, I don't know how I remember that, but I thought I had kind of talked about that a bit, and that's really nice. And I think that's an important thing about vision boards, whether it be for your personal life or your business, that putting something on your vision board is quite vulnerable, because what if it doesn't come to be? And then you've got that image looking up at you. And like, do you feel like a failure, or, you know, that negative self-talk comes in because you haven't got there yet, you haven't achieved it. But equally, you've got to remind yourself where you're trying to get to, and like have things around you that inspire you to push yourself further than maybe you feel comfortable or thought you could get to, and take some big leaps. And so, yeah, I think that was quite vulnerable for me, like sitting and having that up there looking at me every day. But letting yourself dream, it can be a wonderful thing. And just letting yourself believe that things are possible. So I guess that is kind of a big part of doing your vision board, and having it somewhere that you can see every day to keep you motivated at those times where you feel like, oh, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? And I actually ordered an A3 print of it. My printer here can only print up to A4, and with so much on it, I wanted it to be slightly bigger and just so it catches my eye more. So I'm going to put it above my computer. So I ordered a print of it, which came within a few days. It was really fast. So I haven't put it up yet. I am going to go and get it now, get a frame, and let's hang it up above my desk. Oh, I hope it looks nice. Oh, it does look. That is so sweet. Oh, I love how it turned out. I absolutely love it, and I love that it's right above where I sit. So this picture here is kind of representing the home projects, and then I just put the word decide over there as kind of like a synonym of kind of deciding what's important. So I have done some of my home projects. A lot of that was, again, getting ahead of potentially a child coming into our lives. So we did the nursery, we sort of did the dining room. It's not quite there and it's covered in junk that needs sorting out. Yeah, we did some work upstairs, like got some electrical stuff done. So yeah, there were a lot of things we needed to finish off with potentially a child come in, and also just to have an environment that when you finish work at the end of the day, you can go to, and it feels like a cozy, safe space that represents you and you feel all snug and happy in. And I feel like it is coming together in that way, as is my studio. Again, it needs a bit of a tidy and a rejig, but I love working in this space. And I did a couple of kind of office makeovers last year, which I'll link the videos. And I'm planning on updating it a bit more and bringing maybe some more colour and fun into the office, just like I did with my trade show stand. I did work a lot on kind of the spaces around me to make me feel better, if that makes sense. This I really loved, mindful versus mindful. This is very much how I feel like 2023 was. This is kind of representing me and my husband, and having kind of one thing in my vision was about having regular date nights and just focusing on making sure we're carving that time out that's just for us two. Yeah. So I feel like we were getting better at that, and then we became parents. And in very much in that initial phase where we were just getting little one used to us, it was almost like we were on an island on our own. And people were doing, like, we had so much lovely support. Like, we were told not to introduce her to too many people. So, like, our parents and stuff were doing lovely things, like just coming in and dropping off some meals so we didn't have to cook, and just, like, being there to chat to us and stuff. And then more and more, like, as they've all got to know each other, they're starting to now have her for little pockets of time so she can spend time with them, but also it gives us a break. But it's very tempting for us to spend that time, like, either I'll say, oh, I'm going to work, or like catching up on things in the house that need doing, instead of just like having time for us. So there's been a couple of weekends where, like, she's been looked after in the morning and we've gone out for breakfast, and I've said, like, she's not on the agenda for this meal, and we try not to talk about her as hard as it is. And like, we realised that there's so much news we both had that we hadn't had time to, like, tell the other person. So that is something that we obviously need to work on, because again, it's finding that balance, and I think we're getting better and better at that now that we're kind of settling into the parenting role, because initially it was kind of just like survival. What's happened here? Who's let this happen? Who's just dropped a child into our lives? And now that we feel more comfortable, I think we're starting to, like, adjust things a bit more and include more of the fun stuff that we used to do together and separately. So yeah, that needs to stay up there. I have my yoga lady in terms of kind of getting moving this year, which is something that I want to do. I mean, how many years is that on my vision board, and it all falls by the wayside? So if you don't know, I have fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain condition and fatigue, and it's tricky. And like I said with the trade show, usually I need to just collapse and, like, recover from pushing myself way past the limit. But making sure I'm moving regularly is one way to counter that, and kind of have a higher tolerance for activity. It's kind of dropped off in two ways, really. One is the time. So I'm finding that in the routine we've kind of put together, that my husband is doing all the dog walks while I'm doing other things with our little one. And that was a time where I used to clear my head. It was quite kind of meditative in a way. It got me moving. It was quite inspiring. I'd have quite a lot of, like, work ideas that would pop in my head on walks about new products and things, and I'm not doing that anymore. And so I've kind of noticed the difference there. So we have talked about readjusting that. And also, suddenly having a toddler land in your life, like, when you're picking up a baby and things, like, they grow and you get stronger. But I have found that kind of back injuries, knee injuries that I already had, like, I'm pulling my back and my knees all the time. And then that is kind of preventing me from doing other movement, because I'm just trying to rest so that I can pick her up and do stuff with her again. So that's been quite tricky. Like, I've come home and pulled my shoulder blade again. I keep pulling it, and it's really frustrating. And I nearly couldn't carry my shop into the car in Asda. So, like, I'm starting to feel like I'm falling to bits. I was just looking around, like, I think I'm going to have to ask someone because I can't pick up my shopping. So, yeah, it's really important. And I think that's where this year I almost need to set up some, like, routines for myself, even if the daily routine isn't the same. If I have a routine almost like for the week where there are things I do on certain days, and part of that is about moving, even if it's like I put some dance workout on the telly and let her join in with me, because by the time she goes to bed, I'm fit for nothing, really. So, yeah, I need to readjust, really, the routine. It's like everything fell away so that we could focus on her and becoming parents, and now we're finding ways to add bits back on. So that's one that really needs to happen, and I need to find some way to stay accountable, pull my finger out and just do it. So that being above my desk and looking at me is a very good thing. This is a picture of the blossoms in South Korea, which is what we're looking forward to going to. So we did take our trip to Korea, and it was massively inspirational for work, which I wasn't expecting. Like, I came away with so many ideas for the direction I want to take Sunshine Lane in, which I'll talk about later in this video. But I did a video on my trip. I actually vlogged it, and I hit up so many cute stationery shops, and I did a haul of what I brought back from Korea. And I also talked about like the things I saw and how they inspired both collections that I brought out last year, as well as like the future direction of where I want to take the business. It's not one of my most viewed videos by a long shot, but it's probably my favorite video that I've done. It's something obviously very different to the other videos on my channel. So if you want to give it a watch, I will check it out. It's a lovely, cozy video. You get to see lots of gorgeous things, both in stationery and in travel. So adding cuteness, like cute characters and like fun shops and like big concept stores, and I think it's really inspirational. So I will leave that linked. But it was a fantastic trip, and I would love to go back again one day. Maybe take little one with us. I don't know what she'd make of it when she's a bit older, but yeah, it was fab. I really enjoyed it. Books and tea, because I want to read more this year, and it also kind of reminds me of just kind of cozy vibes. So obviously I did my cozy bookish collection, which I absolutely loved, and I brought out my first character, Maple, and I really wanted to kind of share that vibe and that feeling through my products. I did do more reading last year, but it was all related to adoption and parenting, and not like reading for fun necessarily. So that is something that I would like to do more of this year, is reading just for me, things that aren't necessarily related to work or parenting, things that are just simply for like escapism or just personal development or whatever it might be. So yeah, that is something that I would love to do. Then I've got some little elements, some little flowers, a smiley star, a little goals, some smiley faces, and then we're in the middle with my word of the year, put intent. And then in terms of where it actually sits in my office, I'm in the process of giving my desk a little bit of a mini makeover. And then I've got my laptop and my monitor, which is my setup for working when I'm sat at my desk, having the bigger screen. And I've got my wall calendar as well now. It's my first year I've done the wall calendar. So I didn't do a calendar for 2025, but I really want to do one for 2026. So we'll see if I can do that. My plan was to do like 1 or 2 illustrations a month, and then the calendar would kind of have done itself by the time I got to that point, and that didn't really happen, and I dropped the calendar off the list because you just got to prioritize, right? And I didn't want to kind of rush something out, so it's on my plans for this year, as in to be released for next year. And then I'd left this space above my monitor, and I like the fact that it's right there above where I'm working every day. And also when I come in here and look across the office, I'll show you, you can see that it's right there, colourful and eye-catching. It just catches my attention when I'm kind of different places in here. Yeah, I just love the pop of colour above my desk. So I'm kind of overall happy with the progress on the board, like in terms of achieving what's on there. The good thing with a vision board is like, you can kind of go down the route of specific goals for your vision board, but I kind of like to keep that separate. Like, I want my vision to be like an overarching, like how I want my life to be. And then I'm going to set goals of how I'm going to get there. And whilst I'm now realizing there could be more work related things on my vision board, I'm quite happy with the images overall. I really still love the word of the year being intent this year. And it's something I keep saying to my husband is, like, when I was trying to do the greetings cards over Christmas, towards the end, I did feel a little bit like I was a bit in and out and it was very bitty. And now that I've got a couple of days a week where I'm kind of getting on with Sunshine Lane stuff, I feel a lot more like when I'm at Sunshine Lane, I'm throwing myself into that. And when I'm with my family, I'm throwing myself into that. And that's how I want to be. And it's just going to be all about finding that balance. It is something that, yeah, like I said, it's not there yet, but I am really early days and things are going to be changing. Like in March, my husband is due to start going back to work as well. We don't know yet if that's going to be full-time or part-time. We've got grandparents that want to have her some days, so that's really lovely. I'm super grateful for that. I know that's not a luxury that everybody has, but I also really want to make sure that I have that time with her, like I don't miss out on it. And that's why, like, part of why I love working for myself. So I want to have at least one day where it's just us and I don't touch Sunshine Lane, like in the week, obviously the weekend, but I want to have a day in the week where it's just my day with her. And I plan fun stuff to do. We go on little trips and outings and we get out and do something different. And to me, that would feel like a lot more intentional than having a couple of hours here and there where I'm thinking, oh God, is she going to go down for a nap soon because I need to get back and do X, Y, Z? That's not how I want to parent, and it's not how I want to live my life. And I know with the best will in the world, like those feelings are still going to be there, but she has already changed so much in this 3 months. There are so many things I already miss that she doesn't do anymore. And I just want to soak it all up before we know it, she's at school. And yeah, it's just, or she's graduating, or yeah, she's an adult, because the time is already going so quickly. I totally get what people mean now. So yeah, not to keep harping on about being a mom in this video, but I think becoming a parent just massively changes how you approach things in life, and it's still early days. So it has to be a big part of like the changes I'm making to my business this year, because I want to grow the business, but I also don't want to do it at the expense of missing out on the family that I've waited a really long time for. So yeah, that is what I'm thinking. So looking at my vision board now, I might actually tweak it and order a new one. Firstly, because it says 2024 on it. But secondly, because I would quite like some imagery that represents my plans for where I would like Sunshine Lane to go in the future. So I will tweak it and order a new one, and I will show you it in a future video. But I think I am going to keep my word of the year the same, because I still think last year was almost like the preparation phase for this, and now we are kind of having to implement it. Yeah, we're in the scary bit, but it's fine. So I'm quite happy with that. I feel like we worked hard, like me and my husband, to get things to a point, both in home life and work life, where this would be easier. And I think a lot of the things on there like did come to pass. And I'm just excited to see where this year goes. So I am going to leave it there for this week's video, and my 2025 planning will come in next week's video, because this has turned into a very, very long one. I guess when you're off for a month and you have to update on all those things, the video gets longer and longer. But do let me know about that Notion template if it's something you think would be helpful. Let me know in the comments what kind of things you would use, what you struggle with, what you need. Would you use it? Would you not use it? Any and all feedback is really, really helpful. Plans where I want Sunshine Lane to be going moving forward, and show you how I've gone about planning my whole year, so that I can hopefully practice what I preach in terms of that vision board and make intentional plans and follow them and stick to them. So join me for that next week. Do like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're not a subscriber already, because it really helps push these videos out to people who might also enjoy them and helps out my channel. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.